Alright, in this video, talking about the inking of my cover for the Realm Ethereal, the Dream Awakens Collected Edition. But funny, the lead-in is going to be this video of me as I make this video, as the time of the recording of this video, where I'm actually doing the coloring. And so here's a little bit of a preview of some of the color flats that I'm doing for the cover. So there's a little preview. But now as I dive into what is essentially the final inking for this comic book series. Again, my Realm Ethereal, the Dream Awakens Collected Edition, collects 4 issues of basically my own IP, my own characters, my own creations. Just kind of want to talk about a little bit about a little bit of the journey, and maybe even talk about these characters a little bit, because why not have something that's actually focused on the art, right? So this character here that I'm inking, well, the guy here kind of going back and forth with the guy here with kind of like smoke coming off his head. One of the very early ethereals that I created, the ethereal of vibration. And at the time when I was conceiving these characters, you know, I had these 4 main characters, of which was one of them, vibration being one of these kind of like concepts or ideas of like these 4 powerful, kind of like, I wouldn't call them superheroes, and they're not really like deities or anything, but from the outside I guess they kind of feel that way. But this character again was one of the main characters I came up with. Now the character I'm rendering here, and this is going to be kind of quick because this is a time lapse, so I'll kind of try and shoot from the hip here and go pretty fast. But again, the character beneath him is Kasia, and she has had a couple of iterations I should say, throughout the series. One which is from, as I look back now, kind of a bathing suit kind of costume to an astronaut, and not to what is like pretty much like a full-blown superhero costume here that you're seeing bits of as I start to ink here. And she's really the main character in this whole story, and right now the plan is to continue with her being an integral part, the main part of the story, even going into the second follow-up chapter to this Dream Awakens series, which is going to be the Sky Dream, where she still plays a huge part. Because you really spent the first 4 issues, the last couple of years talking, not talking about her, but her being the main focus, and her interactions with these characters or beings or whatever you want to call them. And so what we're seeing here is her final costume that was revealed in the final issue. And so that was really fun to concept and draw something that was more kind of superhero related, interestingly enough, because I wouldn't call this a superhero type comic series, but obviously my history and my love for traditional superhero comics kind of comes in through here. I think there's no doubting that. This character here is Kor, the Ethereal of Chaos. That's spelled K-O-R. Again, he is another one of those main ethereals that I came up with early on, that is one of the 4 next to Ohm here. And at the time I wasn't thinking elements, but he kind of has a fire kind of look to him, with at the left side of his body kind of emitting this fire, like these flames, I guess I should say. And then he's meant to be kind of like, with the name or title like the Ethereal of Chaos. I guess I would say he's kind of like I wouldn't say a bad guy, but in some ways also kind of like almost like the Joker in a way, because I wrote him in the first 2 issues as having this kind of weird kind of lingo when he talks of just the way he talks. And I think that's probably due to the fact that I'm not a very good writer, but I know my ideas and what I want to do, and I am still an artist first, concepting and drawing all these stories in on a plot and whatnot. But then as I start to write and script, then these characters start to kind of flesh themselves out more. So as I kind of dart around here, I've got some flames here, and then now I'm inking Ina. She's the Ethereal of Order, the opposite of Kor, the Ethereal of Chaos, and she kind of has these tentacle-like things on her head that represent her hair, that I guess we would associate with hair being on her head. And this landscape I'm inking here is like the initial realm or worldscape that we see Kasia crash into, essentially, from her space shuttle ship that she has somehow mysteriously. I haven't got into what happens. I mean, I've talked about it in the story, but in the follow-up story, there's going to be a little bit of some kind of like flashbacks to what's happening and what happened for her to get into that shuttle, because that's just something that is going to be something integral to the story. So that'll be coming up soon. Talking about the artwork here, this kind of cross-hatching I'm doing here is kind of meant to be my way of showing some kind of gradation in the backdrop of like cosmic space kind of type texture in the background. And of course, you got to have some powerful beams of light coming down, or energy. Adding some background here, the dark matter, I should say, to the background there, and also working in elements that overlap. So that strand there that you just saw is a piece of the other character's hair. And as I'm, filling out this, as I'm inking this page, there are elements that I need to kind of put in place so I can have a clear boundary. So the bands that you're seeing, these kind of strings and the cross-hatching, I'm having to work across the page, across the spread really. There's 2 pages here, the front cover and the back cover, and then there technically is like a half-inch spine. So I'm having to draw and illustrate these things and put in these key elements that I can't focus on one character because I want to be focusing really on the whole piece entirely. So I kind of jump around a lot, but in doing so, I do have to like in this case, this is an ethereal. This is add on the ethereal dimensions that I have to really kind of outline his figure, and then again go back to some rendering of the space background, this cross hatching, which is a really bad tribute to the way L. Williamson would ink like space backdrops. At least that's kind of how I interpret it, and that's kind of like my style, which is nowhere near what the awesomeness that he's able to do. But I would say the inking is actually my favorite part of the whole process. So here we go, talking about that shuttle. Here's that shuttle that I'm kind of outlining so I can kind of get other parts around. And then we have these kind of like, if you're looking at this for the first time, it probably looks like spaghetti, like a bowl of spaghetti with these like little strands here, but it's been running throughout the entire, since issue 1, this texture of rope or spaghetti. And then finally on the very last page, you kind of see what that is, the last page of the story. So if you go to my website, again, all this stuff is free to read on my website. I've been publishing it on my website for like the last 4 years or so. So a lot of this you can see. And again, those strands are part of the reveal of a character, which I have to say, like at the time when I did it, I didn't even know it was going to be that. Like I'm just drawing all this crazy stuff because like I didn't want to draw buildings. I didn't want to draw cars. I drew a spaceship, but like I really want to do something ethereal and just kind of out of my head. So speaking of ethereal, getting to ink the hair on Oda, the ethereal of light. Now, inking the hair, this is actually probably the easiest part because it consumes or it takes up so much space on this, what is essentially the back cover. And it was fun to draw. And her hair has always been kind of like an element to her, when you see the character design, her physicality. Like I have her hair, but then there are instances within the series where I have her hair almost shaped like wings. And I think that just is just kind of playing into that whole ethereal concept. Now here was I was really looking forward to inking this character. This is Onu, the ethereal of constant. And I posted like a short video on this talking about, my process in inking this and how I envisioned, how I penciled it. And by the time I inked it, it kind of looked like maybe 80% of what I thought it would look. And part of that is, I love working with this ink brush, this brush pen. It's a great brush pen, the Kuretake, which I recommend highly, which I love. But it also, it's a great brush pen. It is not like a pen at all. Like the other pens I use are the Faber-Castell Artist Pitt pens, and I love those for, appropriate type of whatever the occasion or the subject calls for. Sometimes a pen is just a lot easier than a brush. But here, I want to keep my inking with the brush skills as sharp as I can keep them. But sometimes, I just don't get quite the stroke or the cross-hatching, the transition that I want with this. But that's also part of the process and kind of understanding that I love inking with this pen, but I know it's not always going to be perfect, and in fact, it'll probably never be perfect, but it will be adequate. Adequate? Should I say that? I mean, it's great to draw and ink, and then ultimately to tell a story. So this is, I feel very confident of what I'm inking so far here. And when I finished it, I'm very pleased with it. But there are definitely areas where even the inking is just like, I wish that didn't turn out that way. But probably imperceptible to most people, as they say. But basically, I am a one-man show on this comic book series. So I am the editor, the writer, the colorist. I'm all that combined. So I wear a lot of hats, and sometimes I'm probably the worst judge of what I'm looking at. I just need to get stuff done, and that's like another aspect to what's involved with inking and drawing your own story. So now I'm just getting to ink. Let's see, we have the main ethereal guard here. This is Azure. He's like the top badass ethereal guard here, and he's also one of the first ethereal guards I drew. No, I take that back. He wasn't the first ethereal guard. Wait a minute, was he? Actually, I think he is. He's one of the first ethereal guards I created. I forget. If there's 2 ethereal guards, I think he's one of the... He may have came second. Yeah, he came second, I think. Anyway, fun character to ink, and he will play a big role in the second series as well, again, following up this series. Here I'm just inking in some of the details on these, kind of like these golden... they're not golden here because this is just black and white, but these kind of tentacles, kind of these bands, they're kind of metallic that I'm trying to show here. So we'll get to see what those actually are in the next story arc. There's so much in this next story arc that is going to be revealed or shown. Okay, here's one part of the drawing I've been just chomping at the bit to ink, and it was Oda's facial features, the details here. And I had to really work hard to not over render her face, because I'm learning that as I'm inking more and more, and the more lines and more cross hatchings you add to a face, the more either muddled or muddy, or just how you make a character who maybe isn't old look old. So inking this is always a challenge of putting down the least amount of brush strokes to make the illustration look presentable, if you will, readable, but also help it to read clearly, to tell a story clearly, right? So this, I really resisted doing a lot of rendering. I could have done something for her cheekbones and then going to some rimmed lighting off of her chin there, but I just resisted that. What will probably happen is I'll probably go into the into the coloring and render something that's maybe more painted, which that is another fun part too, what I enjoy doing when it comes to that part of the process of finishing the final colors for this, for when I ink my own work. So putting some details here on your face, and then finally the thing that these 2 characters here are essentially, they are the aunt and uncle of Keija Minor, and I held off on inking them probably because they were my least favorite to ink. I just keep putting it off, and then finally they're like the last thing. They're practically the last thing there, and so I just, there's nothing else to do it, but nothing else to it but to do it. So getting them inked in, all part of completing the artwork here and getting all the characters, and for the most part all the different kind of aspects of the storyline itself covered, between obviously the crashed shuttle, the 4 ethereals, in the giant ethereal in the background holding the staff there, Odin, and then of course getting in some of the final touches here in the inking of this page. And so again, some of the last things to do were those planets, which I did not planets, but those rocks, which I did not ink. But anyway, that's pretty much it here. This cover is done, it's complete. I am happy the way it turned out, and for the most part, I can live with this here. And it's a good thing I printed it. I printed a hard copy proof sans the cover, without the cover, because I didn't have it, but I wanted to make a proof nonetheless. And that I'll link that video, I guess when I was revealing that proof, in the description. You can see the cover has essentially the thumbnail of that on it, I should say, which is what we're seeing here, the final artwork for this cover. So the cover turned out pretty good, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the inside, kind of like the inside intro pages, the title page, I guess. It's got the the indicia. I'm going to change it to this artwork here once it's all colored in. I'll probably do like an original, not an original, but a kind of a black and white rough scan in the back of the page, kind of like on the back of the book, just to add a little bonus for the cover. So anyway, this book is shaping up. The cover is just about done. I need to color it and then get another proof ordered, and then this thing will be ready for me to release to the world. Stay tuned. There is more to come. Thanks for watching.